It's important to learn about the history of the non-commissioned officer in the United States because being a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army is a profession. And one of the things that learning about the history of the NCO Corps does is that it tells you who you are as a professional. History is about who you are and what you can achieve and what is expected of you and how you can excel. It's about the identity that you assume when you put those stripes on. The history of the Army and the history of the non-commissioned officer overlap, but they are distinct things. When we get back to the 1700s, pre-revolution, as the British began to settle into North America, there evolved a system of militias. One of the roots, the taproots of the NCO Corps comes out of this militia. And it combines with the second taproot, which I'm going to argue is going to be the frontier. And when you think about a militia, everybody has to come in, contribute to local defense. The militias that are pulled up during the course of the 7 Years' War, which is going to end in 1769, the British really don't like them. Militias are undisciplined. They're not untrained, but they are amateurs, right? You teach them to point and shoot, and that's it. So we can't really talk about an NCO Corps at this point. Yeah, there are NCOs. There are people that function in that way. But when we think about the United States Army NCO Corps, that's really going to be a revolutionary thing. And in fact, the guy that's really going to set up the NCO Corps is going to be a guy named Frederick von Steuben. March 29, 1776 at Valley Forge. If you want to celebrate the birthday of the NCO Corps, that would be the birthday of the NCO Corps.
We have a company-level TA-50 layout coming up 2 weeks from Friday. Take the time in the next week to get your gear straight. We will do a squad-level pre-inspection the Tuesday before with a platoon-level pre-inspection the following day. This will give you 24 hours to get your gear right before Sergeant Charles has eyes on it. Get all your gear laid out, check it over, and make sure all the deficiencies are squared away. On Tuesday, bring your gear to the PT field for our squad-level pre-inspection. Are you tracking? All right, you know what to do. Now get to it.
Man, I cannot believe we are doing a TA-50 inspection in a few weeks. Now I have to go on a scavenger hunt to find everything I'm missing.
The only time my balaclava sees the light of day is during these inspections. No one in command actually allows us to wear it.
You know, the early militia in the colonial days had to provide their own gear. Would you rather we go back to that practice, gentlemen? The Army gives you this gear to keep you safe while training and deployed. It's your responsibility to maintain it, and my job to ensure that you are doing that and that you have all your assigned gear.
My bad, Sergeant. We were just BSing around. We didn't mean anything by the comments.
I know we've all been there, and I know you didn't mean anything by it, but negative attitudes are contagious. If you have any questions about the inspection, talk to Sergeant Rencher and he'll help you out.
We're moving out now. Roger, Sergeant.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Rencher. How are things going today?
It's going, Sergeant, providing the Joe's purpose, direction, and motivation.
Keep it up, Rencher. Your soldiers will look to you for that purpose, direction, and motivation. I want to make sure we are all good for the upcoming TA-50 inspections. Do you have any questions?
I mean, to be honest, Sergeant, why do we do these inspections? Of course everyone has their gear.
It's because we are not NCOs in a militia. We're NCOs in a professional army.
Wait, what do you mean?
Back when the colonists were moving westward into the frontier, they had to form militias to fight the Native Americans and other adversaries. NCOs in the militia carried out the officers' instructions and were primarily in charge of maintaining drills and formations in battle. The way you would fight back then was by creating 3 line columns that would lay down volley fire. One line would be firing, another would be reloading, and the other getting ready to fire. NCOs were responsible for calling out what the militiamen should be doing. The militias had many issues. Because they were usually made up of people from different towns, there were large differences between them. The various militias had different maneuver commands, training, and promotion systems. This made it hard for them to work together. But overall, militias were known for being ineffective and having low levels of readiness, since there were no standards for training, discipline, or care. Also, they had to supply their own equipment, basically grab whatever they had, and no one would check it. The mentality was like, grab your stuff, meet me at this spot, and let's defend this town. This is exactly the mentality you should not follow, Rencher. We are NCOs in a professional army. You need to trust but verify. Trust that your soldiers will get their gear straight, but verify that it's all good to go.
Tracking, Sergeant.
As an NCO, we have specific responsibilities to produce readiness. Think about your A and B bag. This is kind of like the Minutemen mentality. Ready at a minute's notice.
Can you elaborate, Sergeant?
We can see the ideas of training and readiness with the Minutemen, who were known for their ability to quickly respond. The colonies reorganized the militias into fast response units to fight the British. However, they still followed militia traditions and did not have a structure that would provide a unified army, which is what they needed to fight the British. Think about alerts and when we practice alerts. You have to keep your A and B bags packed at all times in case you get an alert. Ready at a minute's notice.
Tracking, Sergeant.
The Minutemen, although just a little more organized than the militias, were still unable to provide a unified force across the colonies to fight the British. This is what led the Continental Congress to create the Continental Army.
So was the role of the NCO in the militia and Continental Army the same since it came from European traditions?
The militia NCO was radically different from the Continental Army NCO. You see, the creation of the Blue Book provided the lines of authority, a rigid rank structure, specific responsibilities, and integrated the NCO into the daily life of the unit, where the NCOs are responsible for the care and discipline of the soldiers. So, the Continental Army becomes the first time there is really an NCO Corps. Another important thing to remember about the militia NCO is that he got a lot of influence from the frontier. And that experience combined with European influences created the American NCO in the Continental Army. This truly unique NCO is what created the backbone of the Army, the NCO Corps.
So that's what you meant by not an NCO in the militia and an NCO in a professional army.
Yes, and I think we need to chat more about that purpose, motivation, and direction you are giving your soldiers. I think Jones and Campbell may need a little more of it. I heard them having a very insightful conversation about our upcoming TA-50 inspection. Don't worry, I made sure to nip that negative attitude in the bud, but you still need to follow up with them.
Sergeant, soldiers are always complaining about stuff. Doesn't mean they won't do well on the TA-50 inspection. How do you think I can change their attitudes about the inspection?
We need to provide Jones and Campbell with the importance of why we do inspections. This goes back to what von Steuben himself noted about American NCOs and soldiers, which is that they need to be told why before they are actually able to perform well on the task. I would address your entire team to ensure they understand the importance of these inspections and their impact on readiness. These inspections also instill discipline. You have to be able to execute these small procedural tasks to be able to execute more complicated tasks later.
Roger, Sergeant.
If I were you, prior to our squad level pre-inspection, I would spot check your soldiers' gear. Trust but verify, Wrencher. Also, check the CIF DXing hours.
Tracking. Thanks, Sergeant. I appreciate all your advice. Have a good evening. I will see you at 0600 tomorrow.
All right, everyone, let's get started. This pre-inspection will set you up for success during the platoon and company inspections in a few days. I'd rather we identify any shortcomings now instead of on the day of execution. This isn't going to be one of those typical TA-50 pre-inspections you're used to. This time, we're going to start a different way.
Are you thinking about letting the soldiers check our stuff, Sergeant?
Not quite. That is, not unless you're volunteering to have Private Campbell or Private Jones inspect your stuff.
Not really, because I'll be straight up, some of my stuff hasn't been used in I don't know how long. I got most of the dust off, though.
Really, Sergeant Wrencher? I think you'd want to set a better example for your team. All right, soldiers. As you can see, I've got all my gear laid out here. We're going to start with me, and I want to challenge one of you to inspect my stuff. If you find anything wrong with my TA-50, I'll put you in for a 3-day pass.
I'd like to volunteer Specialist McMahon. He's getting ready to go to BLC soon, so I want him to start getting used to being a leader. Is that okay with you, Sergeant Espinoza?
Sure, that's fine by me. Specialist McMahon, come on up. Here's the checklist. You call out the line, and I'll pull the item so you can check it. As you can see, I had no discrepancy with my gear, and that's what I expect for our entire squad anytime we do a TA-50 inspection. So now, I'll go ahead and inspect the team leader's gear, while the rest of you make sure your gear matches the inventory layout. If you got something missing, make sure you let us know now.
Roger that. My gear is ready to be inspected.
All right, Sergeant Rencher, you're done. You need to go to the CIF immediately after this so you can get your elbow pads and gloves DX'd.
Roger that. I'll take care of that when we're done here. Do you want me to inspect my team's stuff?
Yes, I'll do a walk around while you proceed with the rest of the soldiers.
Private Jones, you're up first.
Yes, Sergeant.
Jones, there are a lot of items that won't pass a TA-50 inspection. You are missing an ammo pouch, your Kevlar cover has dirt all over it, and your knee pads are completely unserviceable. Did you even take this seriously?
Sorry, Sergeant Rencher, I ran out of time to prepare. I will head over to the CIF today and get my knee pads replaced. I'll make sure to fix those other issues by Friday, too.
Okay, you have till 1700 to get this done. The CIF has DXing hours from 1300 to 1430 today. Meet me in the Bay Area at 1730. I'll reinspect your gear.
Roger that.
You're right, Sergeant Rencher. Some of this gear is unsat. This is not how we want the inspection to go in front of Sergeant Charles or for Sergeant Dickens. Jones, explain to me, why do we do these inspections?
To ensure I've maintained all the gear the U.S. Army has provided me with.
Yes, but also so Sergeant Rencher and I can ensure that you have everything you need to accomplish the mission and you are able to survive and sustain any condition you are thrown in. It's about readiness. Rule number 1, don't forget nothing.
Rule number 1. I'm not sure I am tracking, Sergeant.
Major Robert Rogers' Rangers were a light infantry unit that were known for effective tactics of stealth and surprise. While British soldiers wore red uniforms, the Rogers Rangers shaved their heads and wore face paint to blend in with the surroundings. That rule I quoted was one of the 28 rules of ranging that created guidelines so a unit could achieve mission readiness. These rules were created based off lessons learned in fighting in the French and Indian War. Rule number 2 is also important. Have your musket as clean as a whistle, hatchet scoured, and be ready to march at a minute's warning. It's about the meticulous care of your equipment and readiness.
Tracking, Sergeant.
Roger that, Sergeant Espinoza.
Jones, remember rule number 1 for tomorrow. Don't forget nothing. I noticed a lot of you are missing grenade pouches and have unserviceable knee and elbow pads. Completely unsat. Team leaders, I'm expecting you to follow up with anyone that had discrepancies noted.
Roger, Sergeant.
All right, everybody, let's hurry up and finish packing your gear. If you got items missing or unserviceable, you better get it taken care of ASAP. I expect everyone that had a discrepancy to follow up with your team leader for a re-inspection. And if it isn't fixed, you better have a darn good excuse as to why. Team leaders, after you're done putting up your gear, meet me in my office at the top of the hour.
Hooah!
Sergeant Rencher, what happened out there today with Jones?
I know the pre-inspection didn't go perfectly and that there were some issues, but I will personally make sure my soldier's gear is straight between tonight and tomorrow morning.
I know you're new to all of this, Rencher, but readiness is critical. Inspecting the soldier's gear is one way to produce readiness. We have been focusing a lot on the TA-50 inspections, but I wanted to make sure we have 100% unit readiness when we leave in the next few weeks. We need to make sure we are covering all aspects of our responsibilities as NCOs.
I thought we were with the upcoming TA-50 inspection. Am I missing something, Sergeant?
It's not just about conducting the TA-50 inspection. The Blue Book established that sergeants are responsible for the care and the effectiveness of the unit. For your soldiers to be at 100% readiness, they have to be healthy, well-trained, and prepared.
Understood, Sergeant.
It's part of the NCO creed, Wrencher. My two basic responsibilities will always be uppermost in my mind: the accomplishment of my mission and the welfare of my soldiers. We got to make sure our soldiers are ready to execute. This includes looking out for their dental care. I got the dental report from First Sergeant Dickens, and our unit is not as ready as we should be, being that we're only a few weeks out from deployment. Sergeant Wrencher, there are 2 soldiers on your team that need to go to dental.
Understood, Sergeant. I will let those Joes know they need to make an appointment at dental.
Sergeant Wrencher, maybe you misunderstood me. It's your job to make sure those guys actually get to dental. So find some time in your schedule in the next few days and walk them down to dental yourself.
Got it. Operation Clean Teeth and Fresh Breath is underway.
I look forward to being able to tell First Sergeant Dickens we are at 100% readiness in 2 weeks.
Morning, Sergeant.
At ease, Wrencher. How's your team's gear going to check out today?
It's all squared away, Sergeant Espinoza. I followed up with Jones last night.
Good. That is exactly what I want to hear. If you don't do your job to maintain yourself and your team's equipment, someone could get hurt, or even worse, killed when we get to Atropia.
Understood, Sergeant.
All right. It looks like things are about to kick off. Let's go join the squad and get ready for Sergeant Charles.
Sergeant Wrencher, why are we inspecting this soldier's gear?
To ensure all his gear is here, so we know he's taken care of and can accomplish the mission, Sergeant.
That's right, Sergeant Wrencher. That's why we do this. That's why there is not an officer doing this inspection. It's our responsibility as NCOs to ensure we don't slip back into militia mentality. Sergeant Espinoza, your squad's gear is good to go.
Roger that. Wrencher, as an NCO, you are charged with the order of conduct and discipline of your soldiers. You have transitioned from the militia mentality to one of an NCO in a professional army. Seems like you are becoming your team's own modern-day von Steuben.
Wait, what did von Steuben do, Sergeant?
The Blue Book established standardized roles and responsibilities of the NCOs, ensuring that soldiers were taken care of, trained, and had discipline. Von Steuben increased the Continental Army's efficiency by changing the marching formation from a single file formation to marching in a row of 4, and making the soldiers more effective at returning fire. The combination of standardizing the revolutionary regiments created the Continental Army that could maneuver just as well as the other contemporary European armies. This standardization created the ability to confront the British in an effective manner, and we probably didn't win the Revolutionary War without the contributions of von Steuben.
Wow, I never knew how large of a contribution von Steuben made to winning the Revolutionary War.
It's pretty amazing the impact one soldier can have. Just look at the impact you have made on your team's readiness.
Great job, Sergeant Espinoza. Your squad had nothing major identified in this inspection. Keep up the great work. You can tell your leadership and direction is something your soldiers will follow.
Review the choices you made in this scenario and see the results of your decisions.